To order of the City Commission meeting for the City of Dickinson, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. First item, the order of business. Are there any amendments or changes to the order of business?
Yes, President Decker. Under engineering, we will add, under reports, an update on the RFP for the 2020 mill and overlay, and that will be done by Engineer Kubis.
Okay. Any other changes, Mr. Gao?
No, sir, that's it.
All right. Any questions on the amendment to the order of business? Hearing no questions, I'd look for a motion to approve the order of business as amended.
Mr. President, move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the order of business as amended, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries on the amended order of business. The consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda commissioners wish to address? There are no comments or questions on the consent agenda. I'd look for a motion.
Mr. Approve.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
With a second. Any questions, comments, discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries on consent agenda. We have 3 items this evening on the timetable, starting at 4:45. So we'll jump right into administration and finance. First item up is an SRF loan ordinance for wastewater utility systems, and that'll be handled by Deputy City Administrator Carlson.
Thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. Please find in your packet the first reading of a sales tax bond ordinance for your consideration. This ordinance states that the city, by Ordinance 1233 back in 2001, may levy sales and use tax to the dedication, among other things, infrastructure such as improvements to Lift Station Number 1 project. In applying for the State Revolving Fund SRF loan, this bond ordinance establishes one source of payment. This ordinance is for the issuance of $3 million for the Lift Station project, which the loan is closer to $2.37 million, but normally the bond is set a little on the high side in case a loan increase is needed later. This ordinance is to approve the bond with this being the first reading, and on the second reading in September 17th, there will be a bond resolution that will be included for consideration that will go into more details of what we need in reserves and what other sources of funding we would be using to pay the bond ordinance. Upon that, staff recommends approval of this ordinance, and I stand for any questions.
Okay, this will be ordinance 1682, if I'm correct. And any questions for Mrs. Carlson? Questions or comments? This is the first reading of ordinance 1682, and we're not marked for a public hearing this evening. So if there are no questions or comments on this SRF loan ordinance, I'd look for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further comments, discussion, questions for staff?
Correct. It just lists the sales tax and use, so it's all in one portion.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. The next item up is a settlement agreement with the City Center Plaza. Administrator Gah?
Thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. You have in front of you a settlement agreement with City Center Plaza. To clarify, that's a building just down the street here on the corner of Sims. It has several business condos in it, Continental Realty's in it, as well as the NRCS office. And an issue that came up when the city was selling the parking lot across the street was that at one time there was a parking agreement with the NCRS for that. It dated back to the 90s, and for a few years, invoices were sent, payments were made, but then the arrangement changed a little bit, unbeknownst to anybody. Nobody that's involved with the agreement that was working for the city then is here now, so we're kind of left on speculations. But invoices weren't sent and payments weren't made for a number of years. When the agreement surfaced during the sale process, Deputy Administrator Carlson went back and looked and determined that there was an agreement and there could potentially be an unpaid balance. So this agreement would close that out. It would say that there is no longer an agreement and provides for a financial settlement to the city, and we would not have a future agreement. It just really closes this out, and I think provides a good option for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Gah. Any questions for Mr. Gah on this settlement agreement?
And the parking that they were using is void? I mean, where are they parking? They aren't parking there anymore?
They're not parking there. They've been using some other places, and they may park on the city parking lots. It's just not going to be dedicated spots.
Right.
Or they might come up with something else, but that's totally up to them.
I think it's a fair balance. I think the city faulted in not getting monthly issues, but on the other side, I'm guessing that it doesn't say it has to be billed out monthly, but they still owe monthly. So I think it's a good term between both parties.
Any other comments or questions on this agreement? If there are no more comments or questions, I'd look for a motion on this agreement.
Move to approve?
We have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Next item up, Mr. Gah, we have a right-of-way agreement.
Yes, thank you, President Decker. This is something that is an amendment to a right-of-way agreement that was done, I believe, in 2015 when States Avenue was being expanded and a trail was being planned. There was, with one of the property owners, the Kubises, and that agreement's been standing for quite a while. It's actually been amended a little bit over a year ago. They are selling off part of their property. Another item later on tonight is a plat for that area they're selling off, and part of a contingency of that is approval of an amendment. So you have in front of you an amendment. One of the things that was done during that process was a wire mesh fence was put up. This will take down the fence in the part of the property that will no longer be owned by the Kubises. And then another thing that was done in that was a large driveway. So we have agreed, the Kubises agreed that the fence should come down. We also talked about should an additional term be some money, because there was additional terms in there. We'll leave that up to the commission tonight, what that'll be, as well as the driveway. The driveway there that is large enough and was built in correlation with our comp plan. And I'm going to let Engineer Kubis chime in a little bit on that, of why the staff has not been supportive of an additional driveway.
President Decker, Administrator Gah, per our comp plan, access points to streets like State Avenue are limited. And I'll just read from the comp plan. This is the transportation portion of the comp plan called access management. And so when we're talking about private driveway spacings on principal arterials such as State Avenue, we actually state that there's none allowed if possible. Of course, we can't go back in history and remove people's driveways. Mr. Kubis has a driveway. His neighbor to the south has a driveway. His neighbor to the north has a driveway. So those would remain. But our comp plan, as adopted by ordinance, would say that we would not allow driveways onto principal arterials. So unless required by fire code. So we would be opposed to an additional driveway there. If at all possible, we'd like to see that driveway come off one of the existing accesses that already is grandfathered in, so to speak, onto State Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Kubis. Any questions for Mr. Gah or Mr. Kubis?
Okay, for one thing, I just
Mr.
talked-
Kubis, will you introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Dean Kubis. I'm the owner of the property, which I am gonna be giving to my daughter, selling or whatever. Anyway, we do have a building permit for the road and the approach already. I talked to Jim, that's included in the building, and we bought the building permit, we paid for it. He says it's in there.
And that is not correct. Since this right-of-way agreement is in place, we have to follow the right-of-way agreement.
Well, I can understand that, but I know that fence, you guys don't want the fence there. We don't want the fence there.
Excuse us, who requested that fence right away?
It's in our right-of-way agreement.
Mr. Kubis, I remember you guys wanted that fence. I don't think you needed it. You wanted it. The city did it. I think
Right.
we've bent backwards for you guys on this whole thing over the past few years.
No, you have not.
But frankly, to say that you didn't want that fence is not the truth. You wanted the fence
wanted the
because you
fence.
were afraid that someone would be attacked by the horses.
Okay, but the horses
So
are
the
there
city
now.
should put it up. So now you must have got tamer horses because now you want the fence down.
And I offered to take it down, no cost to the city.
Excuse me, but from what I can see and understand here, I can't agree with this here, with your request.
And to clarify, Commissioner Steiner, this is going from an agricultural use to a house. Taking the fence down is appropriate. Mr. Kubis and I had several discussions where I reminded him too who wanted the fence. And the horses aren't there. We don't have the safety concern anymore. So we do agree with the fence. We think that is appropriate.
Also, in our right-of-way agreement with the city, they were supposed to maintain to our property line. It states in our agreement. You guys have not done that. You don't know, I don't know if you guys don't own a weed eater or whatever. The grass is as high as the fence. That's not maintaining it. And why?
Are you talking about the fence you guys put up or the fence that the city put up?
Well, my fence I took down already.
Between the two? Are you talking about the grass between the two?
The grass right along the fence.
Which fence?
Your fence,
Our fence?
yes.
To the west or to
Yes.
from the east over to your
All-
fence?
From all the way to our property line, the city, in our agreement, had to maintain it. They are not doing that.
Are they not maintaining between the two fences?
Between, but doesn't maintain mean you weed eat around the fence?
I believe at one time that they did not want us, they wanted us to, and then they did not want us to
No, no, no,
maintain
no.
that. Was that correct?
No,
For the
that's not
horses?
correct.
I think what was in question, Commissioner Steiner, was the location of the second fence.
And we ended up moving it out, didn't we?
Right, because he wanted to go like 2-3 feet, and we finally agreed on 10.
Well, we went out farther, which was a good move.
Oh,
to get
yeah.
the mowers back there.
Mr. President, so what we're discussing is the capability for the additional property to have a driveway access to States Avenue. That's our discussion, right?
Part of it.
Okay, so let's get back to that. Is there a way that your daughter can have a access through your driveway, or how is that written into your plan for that site?
Yeah, it's possible, but if I sell my property someday, I just assume they have their own driveway.
So, Mr. Kubis, we are limited through our ordinance that was passed through our comp plan.
And the comp plan was adopted by ordinance, and on principal arterials for driveway spacings, it states none allowed if possible. And my interpretation of the if possible is there's always going to be some existing ones that we can't get rid of. Mr. Kubis has one of those driveways. We can't take that away. So we'll never have none on these principal arterials. There's always going to be some driveways. But that's the policy that was adopted by ordinance. One other note is that on these principal arterials, it says that, let me read it again so I'm not paraphrasing it, that on principal arterials, access will be considered at quarter-mile spacing or 5 accesses per mile, including crossing arterial routes. So in the first few hundred feet, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the first quarter mile already. And so I think we're already exceeding what our stated maximums would be for intersections onto a principal arterial. Again, a lot of those were existing accesses that, I don't think anyone's looking to get rid of. But adding another one, it decreases the continuity and the efficiency of those principal arterials. That's why we have it in our comp plan.
Mr. Kubis, this is in front of us, and my understanding is you agreed to it. Did you
Agreed
agree
to what?
to this agreement?
To clarify, he does not like the idea of not having a driveway, nor any financial payment. The fence we agree on, but the driveway and the financial payment.
Yeah, we agree that the fence
Yeah.
does not need to be
We
there.
would like to take the fence down.
But there is no reason I should have to pay you to take this fence out. That is, basically, that's extortion.
So where are we at?
Well,
on
it's
that?
our fence, our property, why can't we leave it then?
Well, if you maintain it, you can leave it. If not, it needs to come out, which you're not doing.
I don't know about that.
Oh, the grass is as high as the fence.
So where are we on the financial part of it? What are we asking?
We had, at one time, we had agreed to take down the fence and $1,000. Mr. Kubis did that somewhat reluctantly, so he would probably like it if he took the $1,000 out. We had asked for more if he wanted the driveway, and again, with our ordinance, we just probably, so we left it in here to take the driveway out, as we had talked about.
Well, yeah, I did talk to you about that $1,000. But after you called me a problem to the city, I said, the hell with it, you ain't getting $1,000 either. And when you told me the reason this money was supposed to be paid is because you wanted to take some money back from when you bought that land from us.
Well, and again,
That's wrong.
We were talking about the additional terms, and as we've talked here, the additional terms included $25,000 and a fence that is still a sticking point today, so.
So if we get rid of the $1,000, you take down the fence, can you live with your one driveway?
That's our fence.
Well, Jim told me we've got a permit for the road and the driveway already. That was in our building permit.
Well, this agreement supersedes any other agreement, so. I mean, we have a right of way.
Well,
When you're referring to Jim, who are you referring to?
He works with Leonard. Jim Thorpe is his name? Yes.
One of our building inspectors. And again, we have to follow our ordinances, even in that, so he just might have been mistaken, but, and it would be right next to your driveway, right?
No, it would be further over.
But
Well, in the middle of the property.
Sure, yeah, it's not that much farther. It is doable, we believe.
Yeah, but okay, the problem is I sell the property, they need their driveway.
Well, you just have an easement then.
A what?
You would just
just
have
deed an easement
You would
to
just
them.
deed an easement to them that it's a joint driveway.
We see that all the time.
We started one person way over here and one person way over here, and now we're like right here. So let's just get this thing done.
Well, I understand that, but I'd still like the driveway.
And that would take an ordinance change, according to what I've been told tonight.
Well, I mean, when you built this road, didn't you plan on Okay, I've got this lot there, don't you think somebody's gonna build in there one day?
Actually,
That
yes.
lot never existed until this plat came forward.
Yeah,
That lot was there all the time. I bought it 10, 15 years ago.
And Mr. Dean Kubis, I have to say Mr. Kubis, there's too many of them in the room, but Dean, that's a really large driveway, right? What is it? Is it 30 feet?
Right, because I've got horses, I need to get in there with a trailer with hay.
So it was built almost to
I
street
thought, I
width.
thought you just said the horses were gone.
Not on my back pasture, they're not.
Okay.
They're gone in the front.
Mr. Kubis, I appreciate you coming here today because I know that you've had a lot of concerns and I've worked with you since I've come on to the commission. And I do appreciate you coming here to kind of allow us an opportunity to talk as a board because when you call us individually, we're not able to have these open conversations and they're
That's
very
fine.
important. And as Commissioner Frederick said, I think, you know, we've had people on both ends of the spectrum and we're really trying to come together. Unfortunately, everyone isn't able to leave happy every time. And would you be comfortable with an agreement that included removal of the $1,000? The fence can be removed and then you will just have to work with the combined driveway?
Okay, I'll throw something at you guys. You fixed my water problem and I would agree to that. I've got 4 acres that are completely ruined.
Mr. Kubis, that is a totally separate agreement.
I don't care.
You've signed off on it and got paid for it,
For what?
for the water.
But you were supposed to fix the problem, you didn't. To this day, it still is not fixed.
I think we're not coming to anything, any conclusion tonight on this. Mr. Kubis is
As a
not
mayor,
going to be
it's your
happy.
job to overlook.
No, it
the
is
city.
not.
It isn't? What is the mayor's job?
For the betterment of the whole city.
Right, so it should cost us money for development, correct? Is that what you're
Mr.
saying?
Kubis, nothing we agreed to tonight is going to make you happy.
No, that's not true. You know, the second day you went into office, you know what you told me when I called you about this water problem? You told me I was bullying the city. Shame on you. That is not right.
I don't think I said ever
Yes,
said that.
you did.
No. I don't think I ever said that.
And I had said I won't talk
Mr.
to you ever since.
Kubis,
and I
nothing is going to make you happy tonight. So we will renegotiate this and we're going to move on.
Well, I don't believe we need his approval. We can just approve an agreement.
Correct. Yeah, and if you took out the $1,000, then as a staff, we're fine with that.
I would be agreeable to that too. Would you like a motion, Mr. President?
If you so wish to forward a motion.
I'll allow any more input.
So you want to
Commissioners
amended,
do.
this amended agreement to remove the $1,000.
Correct.
So item C would be stricken from this amendment. And that is your motion,
I would
Mr.
make that
Steiner?
my motion, yes.
We have a motion to approve this agreement minus item C or 2C
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Okay, who puts the easement in there? On the, pro-
Mr.
so if I sell the property, they gotta still be able to use that approval.
That would be part of the agreement you would have with the buyer.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, you can write it right into your
You can
agreement.
write it into your purchase agreement.
okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
All right, we have some officers to swear in. And Captain Ciani?
Good evening, everyone. Captain Joe Ciani standing in for Chief Dazzlinger, who's unable to make it today. I do have 3 new recruits I'd like to introduce to the commission and the rest of the community. They'll also be getting sworn in this evening. They were brought on board here within the past few months. I'm going to start with Carmen Cooper. Carmen comes to us from Killdeer, North Dakota. She's a native of Killdeer. She initially attended Bismarck State College after high school.
Come on up, officers.
thought they were behind me. We went through this. Line up behind me. Look pretty.
We're here.
Brett. There you go. All right. Like I was saying, she went to Minot State University where she earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Carmen was recently employed with the Abilene Police Department in Kansas. She was there for over 8 years. Comes back to be closer to the family. We're happy to have her. She was licensed there, so she will only be required to take 2-week academy, which is criminal and traffic law. Pretty easy transition with the reciprocity. With Carmen, I'd like, doing this a little differently, I'd like Carmen to come up and say a few words for you and get that done before we actually go through the swearing in, if that works. So Carmen, you say a few words?
Hello, I'm Carmen. Originally from Killdeer, graduated from Killdeer High School, attended my college here in North Dakota. I went to Abilene, Kansas to start my career in law enforcement. I spent 8 years with them, 3 years on patrol, 5 years in an investigations unit. I'm really excited to come back home. It's nice seeing family and friends again. Also really different having contacts in the community with people that I already know. But I'm very thankful for the opportunity to work for the City of Dickinson. It's been great to me so far, and I'm excited to continue my endeavors here.
Well, welcome aboard.
All right, the next person we have is Bailey Tullius. Bailey is a Detroit Lakes, Minnesota native. After high school graduation, he attended Alexandria Technical College, where he graduated with an associate's degree in law enforcement. That made him license eligible in the state of Minnesota, which are reciprocity. Once again, he only has to attend the 2-week academy, and he'll be licensed in North Dakota. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Bailey.
Yeah, so I'm Bailey Tullius. I'm from Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, so about an hour east of Fargo. Kind of very new to Dickinson. First time I came here was for my first interview, but said he was very accepting, I guess you could say, and I'm proud to be a police officer, and thank you guys very much for the opportunity.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
All right, last but not least, we have Jesse Erlacher, who is actually a Dickinson native. He attended college at Bismarck State after he graduated from DHS. He's been serving with the North Dakota National Guard since 2013. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any law enforcement background, so he gets to go to the entire academy. But he's doing well. And Jesse?
I'm Jesse Erlacher, and born and raised here in Dickinson, North Dakota with DHS, and I'm very proud to serve Dickinson and look forward to serve the people.
Jesse.
Welcome aboard.
Jesse, who's your parents?
Dave and Belinda.
Dave Erlacher?
Yep.
Tell him hello.
All right.
With that, I'd invite the city administrator to come up and
All right,
Do the
I'm gonna, to make this easier, I'll give it to you and I'll say it, and then you can kind of read along after I say a few words. And it's very important that you have to sign it when I'm done and then hand it to Rita. I always tell the new officers, when Rita tells you to do something, do it. She told you to sign these, so it's really important. All right, so I, and then your name. So I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States, the state of North Dakota, and the city of Dickinson, to the best of my ability, and that I will strive always to meet the highest ethical standards implicit in my employment and in furtherance of the best public interest. Congratulations and welcome. Thank you.
thank you. If you have any further questions, we'll call it.
Any questions, Commissioner?
Thank you.
Thanks, Cap.
All right, we're right at 5 o'clock, so Mr. Brown, you're up. We have the Dickinson Theodore Roosevelt Airport budget presentation. So,
Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. My name is Kelly Brown. I'm the airport manager here, the Dickinson Municipal Airport Authority. And today, I'm asking that the city approve the budget, which was approved at the last Airport Authority meeting. You should have got a handout that has our expense summary and our income summaries. Our income summary projections for 2020, $1,516,510. I've highlighted a couple of areas in the income. We've seen increased traffic in 2019, and we expect to see that trend continue through 2020. The associated fees, car rental fees, paid parking, two big ones, big money makers for the airport. We expect to see those numbers go up. We have one additional lease for Sanford AirMed. They have a ground lease out there, so we saw some addition for the leases. On our expense summary, pretty standard, not a lot of differences in the previous years. A couple to highlight, there were more than a 5% increase were in maintenance costs. We've been on a delayed maintenance program for a number of years due to a number of our buildings that were brand new. Now those buildings are starting to show their age, and they need some attention this coming year. Our expense summary total, $1,512,236, with our income of $1,516,510 for a difference of $4,274. I met with the county this morning and also presented this budget to them. And I need to point out that our income summary was based on receiving 4 mills from the county, and we did not receive those 4 mills from the county. They only have 1 mill allocated to the airport for this coming year. That in addition to $350,000 in local contribution for the runway expansion project. So if the airport makes that adjustment and reduces 3 mills from the income summary, each mill for the county has a value of $64,454. So at the very bottom of our expense summary, there's a capital improvement line item, has about $374,600 in it for some local project at the airport that don't qualify for state or federal funds. We have quite a bit of work that needs to be done to a couple different airport-owned hangars at the airport. So with the county's reduction in our mill request from 4 to 1, we're going to have to prioritize that list and look at it pretty hard and scrutinize it for the coming year. There's always a potential that we may end up pushing those projects off for another year until funds are available to get those projects completed.
Mr. Brown. Mr. President.
I'm going to ask, what was their reasoning?
Well, my question was, has the airport's mills ever been reduced by the county? You always request 4, is that correct?
Yeah, so the airport has always requested and received the 4 full mills from the city. We can receive the same from the county. Historically, we've only ever asked for and received 1 mill. And this is the first year that we asked for additional mills. But like everyone, resources are limited. Nobody wants to see an increase in their taxes, so they elected to only give us the 1 mill. And they did leave the door open. So in January, I can approach the county commissioners and bring forth the capital improvement projects for the hangar work that we need to. And they were agreeable to look at their general fund, and if they can make it happen, they'll help us out and expend those funds from their general fund.
Thank you.
And the city gives you 4 mills.
That's correct.
Yeah, we do.
Well, we appreciate what you're doing out there, and the airport benefits our community extremely, and I would hate to see what would happen if the airport failed, so I hope that the county can find a way to find some extra funds for you guys, so you hate to put off maintenance from year to year, because at the end it costs you more than
That's
what your
right.
maintenance was. So hope they will come around and do what they can. I know their budget is tight also, but good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Give us a little update on how the project's going out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, we began the first actual construction of the reconstruction of the main runway. We have to build essentially 2 runways. The first phase of the project that we started this year is the first phase of what we call our super taxiway. It's going to be a full-length parallel taxiway when the project is complete, but in the interim, it'll serve as our main runway for 2 years while we reconstruct the main runway. Phase 1 and Phase 2 of construction this year completed about 2,800 feet or so of that runway. It's 150 feet wide. The thickness varies from 17 inches to 10 inches on the shoulders. We should have our crosswind runway. It's been closed for most of the construction season. That crosswind runway should be reopened here before the end of the month. And things are going well. We've had some weather delays at the beginning of the construction season, but the Martin Construction's really done an outstanding job for us, making up for that lost time. So we get the construction season wrapped up, open everything that we can, and then phases 3 and 4 next year, which we received federal funds for and state funds for. Martin Construction also got the bid for that for 2020, so we'll finish up that parallel taxiway temporary runway the end of next year, and it should open, we have it scheduled to open November of 2020.
Great. Wonderful.
Any other questions for Mr. Brown?
Mr. President,
Trustee.
do you usually provide the city with an income statement at all? I know this doesn't really have
The income summary is what we have for our income statement, and it's pretty thorough. I mean, it lists all the sources of income that the airport receives.
I don't know that we got that on our packet, did we? We just got the expense summary in our packet.
We sent it over in Excel up, that probably didn't print that tab, that second tab with the income. But I can get you those figures.
Great.
Any other questions for Mr. Brown? And we'll make sure that Mrs. Carlson gets us that income side of it, income side, so. Not, Mr. Brown needs a motion to approve their budget.
Move to approve?
Second.
We have a motion to approve with a second. Any further discussion, questions, comments?
If I could, Mayor, I'd just like to say to all of you, thank you for your past support. The Dickinson Airport's growing to meet the demand of Southwest North Dakota, Stark County and the city of Dickinson. It's a cornerstone to future growth for the area, and we're super proud to be part of it, and thank you all very much for your past support.
And once the runway's done, we'll be able to bring bigger aircraft in, isn't that kind of?
That's the goal, yes.
Yes.
And then we can be a leisurely destination, so fares will come down?
Yeah, I'm hoping, it opens the door for a lot of opportunities, for sure.
Thank you.
There will be other talks after that, I'm sure. So, one step at a time, right?
That's right.
It's been a long process,
It's a marathon.
so. Okay, we have a motion to approve their budget with a second. Any further questions or comments for Mr. Brown? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have some public hearings this evening, and the first item up will be a rezoning for West Ridge, second and third. Mr. Hadley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This would be rezoning for West Ridge second and third. It's listed that way. It's second, West Ridge second right now, but it will be replatted That will be presented to you at a future date when this is read as a second reading. It was tabled at the Planning Commission meeting to work through some engineering issues. So this will be the first reading of Ordinance 1683. And it's considering changing the zoning from community commercial and R3 multifamily to R2 medium density residential. And the area that is in question is basically directly west of the existing Tractor Supply along West Ridge Drive. You should have a map that kind of shows the area in your packet. And there wasn't any comments from the public against this particular application, and staff would recommend that you approve the first reading of 1683.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any questions for Mr. Hadley on this rezone of Westridge 2nd and 3rd? This is ordinance 1683. Any questions for Mr. Hadley?
Mr. President, I would move to approve ordinance number 1683.
I'll keep that in mind. We're gonna have a public hearing first.
Sorry.
So,
Sorry.
no. If there are no questions from commissioners, this is a public hearing for the rezoning of Westridge 2nd and 3rd. If anyone has any concerns or comments about this rezoning, please come forward, state your name, and let us know your concerns. Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public with any concerns about rezoning Westridge 2nd and 3rd? Seeing no one from the public, we'll close the public hearing. Any further questions, comments? Not, we have a motion to approve 1683
Second.
with a second. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries on 1683. Next item up is a Renaissance Zone request from Mr. Daniel Schneider. Mr. Hadley? Oh, I guess Mr. Josephson.
Please, Mr. Josephson.
All right.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Steve Josephson. I'm the city's Renaissance Zone Coordinator. So we just need to move that to the, thank you very much. So you have in front of you a request for Renaissance Zone status. This is located on Block 3, 31 Sims Street. This was the business that used to be known as the Colors of Health. The applicant, Mr. Snyder, who is in attendance today, wishes to they're going to purchase the building and then convert it into a restaurant. The amount of the project would cost $130,000. The current true and full value of the property is $193,900. For a commercial renovation project like this, the cost of the improvements need to exceed 50% of the full and true value of the property. So they exceed that by quite a bit. Staff shared this with the state Renaissance Zone Coordinator, and it meets their requirements. It also meets requirements in the city's Renaissance Zone Development Plan and the Comprehensive Plan. The applicants are here if you have any questions for them, just to state that both the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff recommend approval. And as I said, the applicants are here if you have any questions for them, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Josephson. Any questions for Mr. Josephson or the applicant? Not. This is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and move to the public hearing if there are no questions from commissioners. If anyone has any concerns, questions about this Renaissance Zone application, please come forward, state your name, and let us know your concerns. Anyone with any concerns? Any concerns about the Renaissance Zone application? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, what is your desire? Need a motion to either approve or deny the Renaissance Zone application.
Mr. President, I'd make a motion to approve the Renaissance Zone request.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further questions, discussion, comments?
Mr. President, welcome them to the community. Glad you're here to do some business. The city's excited to do business with you. And the Renaissance Zone application is one way that we can do it. And we wish you good luck. Thank you. Would you stand up so people can recognize you, please? Come to the... You want to come up to the... Come on up here.
We have to get you on camera or it doesn't count.
With a face like this, no good. Thank you, guys. I truly do appreciate it. And I am Daniel Snyder, and this is my lovely wife, Karen Snyder. And we're excited to be part of this community. We're looking to set roots here, and this is the best way for us to do that, is to anchor a business, and we're excited. So thank you.
Wonderful.
Mr. Snyder, can you tell us a little bit about your plans?
Yes, so as you see, we're going to take 31 Sim Street. It was currently a retail building, and we're going to convert it into a full dine-in, takeout, and bar restaurant. We plan to staff between 10 and 15 people in the beginning. Hopefully we'll grow and we'll need more. We will be serving wonderful homemade Italian food. So for you skinny people out there, I got you covered.
Good deal, good deal. Well, I think there's a lot of people excited here, looks like, so. All right, we have a motion to approve with a second. Any further discussion or questions? All right, we'll go ahead with this motion while they're up at the podium. So, Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Hi.
Chair votes aye. Motion is approved on your Renaissance Zone application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you. All right, next item up is, we have a Chapter 34 amendment, and this ordinance is,
1684.
let's see, this ordinance is going to be 1684? Okay, 1684, Chapter 34 amendment. And this will be handled by City Attorney Craig? Or is it handled by Mr. Josephson? Mr. Josephson, you handling that? Okay. Okay, Mr.
Yes,
Josephson.
And I'm up, Steve Josephson. The reason I'm up here is because I pulled everything together. This has been an ongoing process to update the city's subdivision of land chapter of the municipal ordinance. It's taken about 3 years to get this done. Just wanted to say we've had several meetings among staff. Staff is also planning and zoning director Hadley had solicited comments from the engineering community, and we had engineers from both Apex Engineering and Highlands Engineering who participated in this. This has also gone to the Planning and Zoning Commission on I believe it's 4 occasions, perhaps more than that, for discussion. And just have in front of you just a description of some of the things that have been done that are proposed in this. It's a replacement to Chapter 34. Among the things that are included in here would be an updated existing definitions and added new definitions. Also removed language that duplicates what's in the pre-development checklist for the city that all developers will be given. We've also updated proposing to update design standards, proposing to add provisions creating a new improvements agreement between the city, the developer, and the contractor. If approved, it would establish a public improvements development permit with inspections performed by city staff. Also revise the section on acceptance of public improvements, including sureties. Also it would result in updating specifications for plat section to reference requirements of development application checklist. And also variance requests related to Chapter 34 requirements may now be granted by the Planning and Zoning Commission as part of their process of reviewing subdivision plats. what I would ask is, in terms of what's in this ordinance, you would probably want to direct most of your questions towards City Engineer Kubis and Planning and Zoning Director Hadley. They did a lot of the hard work on this in terms of revision of language, and my role was to help pull it together. So we basically have something here that's more streamlined than what we have currently in the municipal code under Chapter 34. And staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Josephson? Hearing no questions, this is a public hearing. I'll open up the public hearing. If anyone has any questions on the Chapter 34 amendment to the subdivision plan, this is ordinance 1684. Please come forward, state your name. Let us know your concerns about 1684. Anyone have any concerns? Any concerns with Chapter 34 amendment, ordinance 1684? Seeing no one from the public is concerned about our amendments to Chapter 34, commissioners, I'd look for a motion on ordinance 1684.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion, questions for staff?
And just a reminder, President Decker, that this is a first reading, so we'll be back.
Yes. Any further questions? We'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We'll swing back around to administration and finance, and the last item there is an agreement between the City of Dickinson and Meridian Corporation. City Administrator Gah.
Yes, thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. Just to kind of give you a little bit of an update in regards to reuse water in the City of Dickinson, our plant is set up where when the water is run through it and processed, it's a little bit cleaner than normal wastewater, and it's clean to the point of called industrial reuse water. And the city actually sells a significant amount to the Marathon refinery, and also oftentimes for fracking and other agricultural and oil uses. Over the past almost a year, really right after my arrival, we started working on it. Public Works Director Zuroff was working on it before that, and working on some agreements. One, to supply industrial wastewater, industrial water, which is treated wastewater, to the new refinery, the Meridian refinery that will be over by Belfield, and then to take their wastewater and treat it. So this is kind of interesting. Sometimes refineries aren't seen as a real green process, nor are wastewater plants, because you treat the wastewater and gradually it goes down a waterway somewhere. So we're getting pretty good here in Dickinson at reselling it, and then bringing wastewater back and treating it. So it almost creates a closed loop. This is pretty environmentally friendly, and it also provides a good revenue source to the city. So in your packet, you have a water supply, which again takes water to them. I need to add, they're adding a substantial pipeline to take this clear out to Belfield. That's at the refinery's expense. So once this is all put in, we have to take a little pipe to them from the existing refinery, but this is a good opportunity for us. And it's also nice to partner with another refinery. So you have that, the water and the wastewater treatment. One of the consultants, Dan Hedrington, is here. If you have any questions, if not, we just ask approval.
Thank you, Mr. Gah. Any questions from commissioners for Mr. Gah, Mr. Zuroff, or Mr. Hendrickson?
Mr. President.
Sitting front row right there, so.
Mr. President.
Mr. Steiner?
Mr. Gah, what is our proposed expense for the part we have to put in?
I'll defer to Engineer Kubis on that. We're early in that stages yet.
We are, we've contracted with A2S to design that pipeline. It's roughly 3/4 of a mile from around the railroad tracks on the Stronsky Road or 116th Avenue, north towards Old Highway 10. So there's a lot of utilities in there. It's going to be kind of a tedious project, but it's just a water main project. We're anticipating $1 million. I don't have my budget sheet in front of me. It was on our budget sheet for CIP project that we went over last week. I want to say it's $1 million.
Why are we going to be responsible for that?
Well, I guess it was negotiated as part of the agreement, and also the city felt that we're not selling all of the industrial reuse water to Meridian. They have a stated need and then a potential need for more water, but the bulk of the water will still be ours, and no one else was able to extend that pipe through that easement. It was transferable to the city, this easement for industrial water. So we feel our water is more valuable at Highway 10 than it is, that 3/4 of a mile south. If someone did want to purchase water from the city, it's a more convenient location there.
Good explanation. Thank
Well, and to add a little bit too, this actually started as a discussion of how to make the reuse water more marketable, more available, and a reuse water station at that intersection, which is still in the cards later on. It's just the opportunity to sell it to 2 refineries is good enough at this point, but we anticipate that this is going to keep growing. So there may be a reuse water station there. There may be other users down the line. So the limitations to this is a pipeline, and now we're getting more pipeline.
Another question. Ms. Carlson, do you have an estimate of the revenue we pulled off the wastewater last year?
I think I will direct that to Director Zuroff.
The totals would include the reuse water totals and the wastewater. I would probably have to separate, but I would say we're probably $300,000 or $400,000 from our current refinery in revenue. And then prior years, of course, we've had substantial revenue from selling reuse water for
and that goes to pay off our plants. And,
yes, and that was the idea. I think just recently we looked at, we could make the water reclamation facility self-sustaining, which really normally a wastewater plant is not, but we can survive off of revenue income.
We could be a model for other cities around the country to come and see how it's done.
We are looked at nationally as using our reuse water in this area for the oil and the refinery.
Thank you.
And also, I just wanted to continue on. The pipeline north was a project in our CIP even before this other refinery was planned.
Any other questions for staff or Mr. Hendrickson? Now I'd look for a motion on, first, the industrial water supply contract.
So moved.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Any further discussion, questions for staff or Mr. Hendrickson? We have a motion to approve the industrial water supply contract. We'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. The next item up would be the wastewater agreement. I'd look for a motion on the wastewater.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve with a second. Any further discussion, comments, questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. The next item up is presentation by the fire department, if I'm correct.
President Decker, Commissioners, tonight we want to give you a brief summary of activities of the Dickinson Fire Department through the end of August. And I want to draw your attention to the words on the first slide: safety, excellence, respect, valor, integrity, commitment, education. They're important because they reflect the value statement of the Dickinson Fire Department, which is service. We had 511 incidents as of the 27th of August, averaging 63 per month based off of that 511. What you see down below is response type: alert crew, full-time, general alarm is everybody, officer in charge. What that is the alert crew is a 6 to 7 response team of our volunteers responding with our full-time staff on duty. So of those 511 calls, 26 of those involve the alert crew. Those alert crew calls do involve full-time staff. But over and above that, 473 calls for service were handled by our full-time staff on duty. General alarm of 5 involves everybody. That could be a hazardous materials incident. Generally, it's a structure fire, however, or it can be an involved technical rescue call. The officer in charge response, 7 standalone responses for the officer in charge. That's either a full-time individual or a volunteer officer. Now, the officer in charge, the OIC we refer to them as, also responds on any alert crew call-outs and any general alarms. But in addition to that, they had 7 standalone calls. What I'd like to point out, though, is we checked as of today. Between the 27th of August and today, we added an additional 23 calls for a total of 534 as of just prior to this meeting today. That, if you'd like to compare, before I guess go back to this slide for just a second, last year's total for 2018, total calls for service 681. 2017's total calls for service 649. We were just the beginning of September and we're at 534. So on the next slide, what's interesting here, this is the percentage of incident types, whether it's a fire call, 11%, non-fire situation 1%, medical response 31%. Last year that number sat at 25. So we do see that increasing. But the other interesting thing we see happening here, in years past, our highest percentage category of calls were false alarms. That category is falling down. That's at 25%. Yet our overall call volume is increasing. Our overall actual calls for service where we really need to be there, we need to respond, something's going on, is increasing, and false calls are decreasing. That's kind of an interesting thing that we're watching.
Chief, what's service assist and good intent?
A good intent call or service assist call may be if somebody calls, they say, I think I smell gas. We respond and there is no gas leak. Could be that a smoke detector is going off because it's a faulty detector. But it's somebody calls, there is a need to respond to check something, but it's generally a non-fire or a non-medical emergency situation.
Okay.
Training for the fire department covers a lot of different objects and items every year. The training hours total for, as of the end of August, 824.25 hours. Basic firefighter operations, technical rescue, industrial firefighting, company officer training, hazmat, search rescue, medical, extrication, risk management are all topics that have been covered so far this year to some extent. Certificates achieved year to date by our members, emergency vehicle operations certification. We partnered with Public Works on that. They allowed us to use their compound. It worked very well, almost as good as our own driving course would work. But it did work out very well. Thank you, Gary, for that. EMT, several of our people were certified EMTs, as well as emergency medical responders. Firefighter 1 certification, Firefighter 2, Fire Instructor 1, AutoX, Hazmat Ops, First Aid, CPR, all achievements by our people or various members of our department this year. In fire prevention, public education, we're sitting at 429 routines for the year, 295 follow-ups that those routines generate. Construction, childcare, miscellaneous, all total 906. We had a staff meeting this morning where we talked about those numbers. Where we'd like to be at the end of the year is not quite what we're seeing happen, and we had a strategy meeting this morning about that. Weather impacted us as far as shifts getting out on inspections in February especially. Medical, members of our department gone on medical leave has impacted how other members have stepped up in various roles. But we have checked this, we have strategized this, we're going to be where we need to be by the end of the year, and we keep watching that very closely. But what I mean by that is by the end of the year, we'd like to see that routine inspection number be around 800 to 850. So to be past mid-year at 429, we see that we've got to do things a little bit different to get to the end of the year number we'd like to see. So we're working on that. And as well as what we do as far as emergency response, our members are very active in community events. We partner with the Dickinson Police Department, of course, with the Battle of the Badges, the Heroes Ball. Our members are out supporting the Muscular Dystrophy Association fundraising through the Fill the Boot campaign. We take part in the Family Fun Day, in addition to hydrant flow testing, where we work again with Public Works on that. We partnered this year with the American Red Cross on installing smoke detectors in certain areas of town that have been were recognized as areas in need of smoke detectors. Older structures probably didn't have them, or situations where it probably couldn't be afforded. That was a partnership with Red Cross. I can't remember exactly how many detectors we got installed that particular day, but there was quite a few. As a closing, I'd like to talk to you about an incident we had on Saturday evening, August 24th. The call came in at 10:25 p.m. for a fire in an institutional occupancy on the north end of town. It was a stovetop fire. There was cooking grease or oil in a pan on the stovetop that caught fire while it was unattended. That spread to, let's see here, I think I have a pointer here somewhere. Well, that wasn't it.
That's the power button.
I'll hit there. There we go. That black mass right there is what's left of the microwave. That's what was left of the microwave. That's it right here. That's what you're seeing. That's the in-wall sprinkler head that activated. One sprinkler head, only one sprinkler head activated in this fire. The call came in to dispatch at 10:25 p.m. Fire department was notified about 1 minute and 20 seconds after that. Information gathering does take time. It's not just the call comes in and bang, they hit the button. There's information that needs to be gathered. A little bit of time there, but 1 minute and 20 seconds is absolutely acceptable. First engine out, engine 2, out of station 2 on the north end of town, which is where this fire took place. Responded, we were on scene from the time of dispatch receiving the call. We were on scene in 7 minutes. That's really good by anybody's standards. Police department was on scene before us, which is usually the case. They're already out and about in their vehicles. They were already recognizing the need to evacuate that building, and they had an evacuation in progress. What's important is by the time we got on scene, the police department was informing us that to the best of their knowledge, they thought the fire was out, and they were correct. Not only did that fire suppression system suppress the fire, it extinguished the fire. Commissioners, I can tell you that without a suppression system, those cabinets would have been fully involved. That kitchen would have been gutted. Because we were on scene in 7 minutes, that doesn't mean we're flowing water and attacking the fire at that point in time. We need to get set up and organized also. It's still a great response time, don't get me wrong. But keep in mind, with modern lightweight construction in today's environment, it is an accepted fact that a fire doubles in size every 4 minutes. So we're 7 minutes into this fire. Without that suppression system, it absolutely would have doubled. In this case, in this occupancy, there were non-ambulatory clients. There would have been injuries. There is no doubt in my mind. There would have been injuries. That building would not be in use today. That building stayed in use. That stayed in operation. The clients, this is a common dining kitchen area. The clients in this facility slept in their own bedrooms and their own beds that night because of that fire suppression system. That's what the codes do for us, commissioners. That's how the codes, and when they work, when they're installed properly and when they work, That's what they do to keep a business up and running. That's how they keep a business operating. We're very proud of being able to tell you that we have a success story in that respect. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you,
Thank you,
Chief
Chief.
Spivak. Any questions? Comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a report in engineering, and update on the RFP. Mr. Kubis?
Thank you, President Decker. 2 meetings ago, this commission had approved putting out an RFP for our 2020 mill and overlay project. That RFP is out on the street now, so to speak, with a due date of September 25th. We're trying to push this along. As you remember, we're trying to incorporate a special improvement component to this year's project, so we want to get things rolling a little bit earlier. We'd like to shoot for final selection by October 1st. We would request the 2 or so commissioners, if they'd like to, be involved in that selection committee. We'll have staff from engineering and public works on that committee as well. We don't have a date set for that yet, but somewhere between the 26th and the 1st of October, we'd like to get together. So if we have suggestions on meeting times, or at least individuals who would like to be a part of that selection, we can send some emails out and make sure we can get a time that works for everyone.
Commissioner?
I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
I'd be willing also.
Do you want to? Okay. I guess we got our 2 volunteers. All right.
They get for sitting on the far side of the room. They get
Just the peanut gallery over here, so.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. All right. Anything else, Mr. Kubis?
No. that's
Okay. All right, we'll move into Public Works. Mr. Zuroff, we have a change order.
Thank you, President Decker and Commission. I have a couple change orders in the contract. The first change order is change order number 1 for the Reeves Booster Station generator. If you recall, this was brought to Commission, and the contract was awarded for $339,810, which was above the engineer's estimate. Once the contract was under contract, discussion on cost savings found that the generator closure costs had increased substantially, which was the reason for the increased bid prices. This generator will be near the water reclamation facility, and because of its location and not needing the sound attenuation, we're looking at a skin-tight enclosure, and felt that that would be sufficient, and that would reduce our cost by $104,500. So this change order is a deduct of $104,500 and a revised contract price of $235,310. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Zuroff. Any questions for Mr. Zuroff on this change order number 1 for the refuse booster station generator?
Should be reuse, I'm sorry.
Reuse, okay. Any questions, comments? Now I'd look for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
for the second. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you. The next change order is change order 1 for lift station 1. This is our project 2016-11. This change order is with CC Steel, which includes the contractor self-performing the coatings with the proposed deduct of $500, and the contractor proposing to replace the existing north siphon valve instead of modifying and rehabbing the existing structure. Apex Engineering has reviewed this and believes that the contractor can perform the work, and the contractor also believes that it will save time and agrees to the risk and responsibility of design. This is a no-cost change order, actually deduct of $500, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Zuroff. Any questions for Mr. Zuroff on this change order number 1 for lift station number 1?
Mr. President, I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Mr. Zuroff, we have a contract.
Yes, I have a contract in front of you with GT Architect for the Mausoleum addition, Phase 1. This agreement includes services to develop a master plan to identify future buildings and construction for a new mausoleum adjacent to the current one. The current mausoleum is reaching capacity and additional spaces are needed. This phase will consist of site survey, master plan concepts, meetings with all interested parties, preliminary floor plans and renderings, and a preliminary construction budget estimate. These Phase 1 services are to be provided for a lump sum of $19,900. There are two additional comments from the city attorney that I would like to include if the commission approves this. It would be changes to 1.2. Do you want to read those changes? Which would include any changes must be in the form of a written amendment to this agreement. In the event the parties cannot agree on the scope and compensation of the material change, architect will be compensated for work performed to date. I'd like to include that. And also we need to include on 8.2.4, the litigation in a court of competent jurisdiction governed by the laws of the state of North Dakota to be heard by the Stark County District Court. If we could include those two amendments, I believe that was all city attorney did. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Zuroff. Any questions for Mr. Zuroff on the contract with GT Architect? Hearing no questions or comments, I'd look for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve with a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item up is we have a final plat. Plan Director Hadley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is the Humphrey Minor Subdivision final plat. It's the one that was referenced earlier under administration with the right-of-way agreement. It went through the Planning and Zoning Commission. There wasn't any public testimony against or for beyond the applicant, and staff would recommend approval. It does come with 5 conditions of approval and will have a, obviously the right-of-way agreement and a development agreement that will come before you.
Okay, this is Resolution 26-2019.
That's correct.
And this is the final plat of the Humphrey subdivision. Any questions for Mr. Hadley? Hearing no questions, I'd look for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion, questions on Resolution 26-2019, the final plat of the Humphrey subdivision? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Mr. Hadley, you have a special use permit for the Davis Buttes Water Reservoir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This would be Resolution 27-2019. It's for a second 1 million gallon potable water reservoir up on Radar Base Hill. It's proposed by the State Water Commission, and then obviously Rural Water will take over the maintenance of it. It had a number of conditions that the Planning Commission considered, and there were 12 of them that were proposed by staff. There was number 13 that the private road owner and the contractors or the State Water Commission will meet and agree on the state of the condition of the road, and then any damages will be repaired by their contractor during construction. There's going to be a lot of heavy traffic going up that road, and there seems to be some issues right now. So Planning Commission felt that it was worthy of including that. That's the only change to that. There were concerns on the voiced at the meeting on the road maintenance or the help of the road maintenance. There's a number of entities that pitch in to this private landowner, and they're going to negotiate how that's going to work in the future with the rural water folks. With that extra condition, staff would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any questions for Mr. Hadley on this special use permit?
Mr. President, Mr. Hadley, number 8, the Southwest Water Utility shall report to the Community Development Director if either of the reservoir facilities on site are no longer in use. The reservoir shall be removed at service provider's expense within 6 months of notice, and site shall be restored by the service provider to its pre-existing conditions. Is there another option we may want to put in there if the city or county would be interested in that, or if they want to sell it to another prospective user?
Sure, yes. Commissioner Steiner, yes, you can craft that condition however you'd like. If you'd like to enable it, the intent of it was basically to ensure that X number of years from now, long after we're all gone, that it doesn't wind up being just a big monstrosity sitting up there.
I'm sure
Unlikely, but
if it's left as is, I'm sure if something came down to that, they could always change it again. But why not put it in there now? Something to that effect.
I think maybe I'll turn it over to Attorney Kripe. She could probably add a couple of words in there that we could also open it up and allow that.
Would it be something that the city would need to approve if they would want to sell it to somebody else, or?
That's a good question. I think if the State Water Commission is the one that's running it, they would be the ones that would have to make those decisions. All you're doing is approving the use permit for them to place it.
Mhm.
So you could expand the use permit to allow them to sell it for different uses, or you could wait until they actually come to that point where they are going to turn it over or share it with someone, and then ask them to essentially amend their special use permit so that you have more control over what the next use is.
Right. Is this a rush? This one here?
I believe they would like to start construction.
Pardon?
I believe they would like to start construction, yes.
Okay.
But by conditions of the special use permit, if it would be anything other than what we're allowing, they would have to come back to us to amend the special use permit.
Correct.
You looking for a motion?
I'm looking for a motion.
I move we approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That takes care of everything we have. Next item up, we have taken care of all our timetable agenda. We're on to item 10, and that is public issues of city concern not on the agenda. If anyone has any issues of city concern not on our agenda this evening, please come forward, state your name, and let us know your concern.
Good evening, Commissioners, City staff. My name is Sean Smith, and I'm a resident in the area of concern on Chenal Drive. I'm not sure if you are aware, Hope's Landing, WEM, is currently operating a men's sober living facility, housing tenants dealing with drug and/or alcohol addiction on 959 Chenal Drive. The operation of this facility is rather new to our area, and it's recently been causing some neighborhood concern. The rehab facility is located in an R1 zone. It is our opinion that this facility is classified, if licensed, as a group care facility, which would require the owner to have applied to the city zoning board to request a special use permit based upon the Dickinson Municipal Code. According to the code, a facility of this type that is located in R1 or R2 must obtain a special use permit prior to the operation start. I have been in contact with Mr. Hadley and Ms. Kripe. Ms. Kripe indicated that there would be a meeting this Thursday to discuss this issue. I, along with the rest of the neighborhood present, I'm very eager to hear how the city of Dickinson plans to resolve this neighborhood concern. Both Mr. Hadley and Mr. Kripe have been extremely prompt in responding to my inquiries, as well as CCing Mr. Goff, and I greatly appreciate that. In closing, we had no opportunity for public input before this facility became operational. We want to remain informed as to how the city of Dickinson plans to resolve this issue. I recognize the needs this facility is attempting to satisfy for its patients. However, neighborhood safety and the well-being of our neighborhood has become an abundant concern. If a men's sober living facility opened unexpectedly in your neighborhood, how would you respond as a resident? I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And just for your concerns, we are having the discussion. And all of your concerns that have been forwarded to us as commissioners, we have forwarded to staff. Mr. Gah has received all of the emails or any of the comments from any of you. We are working on this. I know, Mr. Gah, if you have any comments, or Ms. Kripe, you have any comments towards this? I know this has been an issue we have been actively working on, and Mr. Hadley, so.
And Mr. Smith's comments were very accurate. We also believe that they should have a special use permit. We have advised them of that. That goes to planning and zoning first at their September meeting. We do have a little concern if they agree with us or not. So our meeting on Thursday is to discuss if they aren't going to go forward with the permit, what are our options? So we're looking at it from a legal standpoint. But if they do come forward, the public hearing would be on September 18th. And at the very least, there will be a discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting then, because we're on it. It's one of the, sometimes you get in management, they taught us a long time ago, because somebody asks you something and then somebody else turns around and asks you something else. Don't yell at them because they don't know the first person just asked you. We do hear the citizens' comments, and last week, the first opening we could find in our schedules to meet was Thursday, and we got it in as quickly as possible because we are paying attention to the citizen concerns. And we appreciate that.
Again, in the response, I spoil the employees at Fisher. I usually get back to them within 5 minutes, and if I don't, they think I'm dead. So Mr. Hadley got back to me within 13 minutes, and that's excellent response. You as well, Mrs. Kripe, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments and your concern.
Mr. President, could I add one thing to Mr. Gah's comment? That we have a deadline this Friday that they were instructed to try to meet, and that would be for the October meeting unless we did take it to the Planning Commission for discussion in September. There's not enough time to have a noticed public hearing for the September meeting because it's too close. So it would be for the October Planning Commission meeting if they came in. Just to clarify that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for your time. My name is Paul Bartholomew. I'm also a resident. We live close to the sober living facility. Our home's within 160 feet of this sober living facility. And I do appreciate the attention it's getting. There's a few points that I'd like to make as well. The sober living facility is a 10-bed facility. And I was listening to the fire chief earlier about a sprinkler system, and I'm wondering, does a 10-bed facility require a sprinkler system or a escape plan? Not saying that there's 10 residents there, but there could be. Another point that I'd like to make is that I did contact our homeowner's insurance provider. I wanted to be certain that we had coverage and that they were aware that the sober living facility was there. And I was told that it could be affected if there's repeated incidents. So it's not just that facility, it affects the entire dynamic of the neighborhood. We do appreciate you looking into this, really do. I do have more correspondence that you have not received. I was kind of designated to bring these in. These are letters from people that could not attend this evening, that have their comments as well as, excuse me, as well as their signatures.
Give them to Rita, we should make sure that we can put them in the public record, and then she will give them to Mr. Goff.
All right.
And then if anyone else, what would be helpful to us as commissioners and also as staff, if there are any specific incidents that you have witnessed out of the ordinary that we need to be made aware of what is happening. We're only aware of heavy traffic and comings and goings at strange hours. That is what I'm aware of so far. So that's what I've reported to the staff. So we need to be aware of if there's what you perceive as out of the ordinary.
Right.
I mean, this is out of the ordinary anyway.
Right.
So, but it is something that I think the fire chief needs to look into if it is a licensed 10-bed, what their fire code would be. So, but yes, give that to Mrs. Binstock, and she will make sure that goes into the public record, and then Mr. Gow will get all those concerns.
Mr. President, you mentioned whether, it hasn't been licensed yet, has it? Hasn't been licensed with the city.
Mr. Gow would
Not
probably.
not at least from a special use permit at the city
Okay.
standpoint.
We don't have a special use permit, I know that.
Yes, I'm a spokesman. So, I didn't witness it, but the next door neighbor has a young daughter that smelled marijuana smoke from that residence, reported it to her mother. Her mother reported it to Kayleen Ordner. There was drug use on the premises, and that person was evicted, is what we were told. So there's already been drug use at a sober living facility.
Thank
The
you.
increased traffic, you're right. But that's the one instance that I can tell you
Okay.
from, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So my name is Ben Roberts. I'm also from Schnagel Drive. And these are the reasons for my concern. So if you guys would just take that into consideration.
I can assure you, Mr. Roberts, we are moving as fast as we can on this, so. Anyone else? Concerns?
I'm Jess Morton, also Schnagel Drive. I have teenage girls on that street, and I'm terrified for them. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Dean Kubis again. I want to know on this water drainage what is going to happen. Yes, we did sign an agreement, but the city did not do their part of it. I've got 4 acres that are ruined. Would any of you guys like your property ruined by somebody else? Answer the question. Sarah?
Do we not have Apex looking at this?
No, that's all done.
Apex had designed a new pond there in the same location as the existing pond. Sent off to the owners for their review. Pond construction is completed 2 weeks ago. Dean, I don't know exactly. 2 to 3 weeks ago, the pond construction was completed.
Yeah, but you guys signed to make the water equal or less. You didn't do that. Do you not see
Do you have
that?
an engineer that says the water is equal or greater?
We got water running through there all the time. We never had that before. I mean,
Mr. Kubis, you're going to have to prove that to me.
that land was farmed at one time. I got pictures of what it was before this development.
Okay.
And I showed them to Mr. Goff. He's seen them. He said there is a problem there that has to be fixed.
It is also in a FEMA floodplain, am I correct?
So you got the authority to ruin my land. I got 4 acres that are
Absolutely
garbage.
not.
Before this started, remember I told you, you want a slough beside this $10 million road? You said no. Who was right? I was. You got a slough. This has to be fixed.
Mr. President,
Steiner.
Mrs. Kripe, has Mr. Kubus been compensated for the damages?
Commissioner Center, I would have to look into the water issue. I think that was,
Yes, we did get money for it, but you didn't do your end on
Not
fixing the problem.
Hold on, Dean. Is there a two-party solution to this where the city has met our obligation? and
Yeah, you know, and that's kind of Mr. Kubus and Evan. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's, when it rains, it keeps running, but it is within our ordinance. I don't necessarily, if I own Mr. Kubus's property, I wouldn't necessarily love it either, but like Engineer Kubus has said, it does meet our standards. It was designed by an engineer. The attorneys continue to talk back and forth, which is who'd have to settle it. Not here at the commission level, not with Mr. Kubus. There is quite an agreement, and maybe the attorneys will look at it. I do know there was a second engineer's review that they wanted us to wait for. That still hasn't happened. I've never seen it. So
How about, was a developer involved in this?
it was.
Has
yes.
he met his
Developer-
responsibilities?
Yes, they had to pay for the construction. And again, like Engineer Kubus says, the construction has been completed according to design.
So if I'm correct, you guys aren't going to do another thing with it, right? Am I correct?
The pond hasn't been inspected and accepted yet, but to my knowledge, it's complete, Mr. Kubus.
So all you did is make that pond bigger and just the water runs through 100%? That's not right.
To my knowledge, Mr. Kubus, there were plates installed.
There's no plates.
Well, then it's not complete. There will be plates.
Well, I haven't seen them. All I know is there's 4 sandbags there. And that doesn't constitute.
That's
plate.
not the plan, no. So I'll investigate that and get back with you. I don't have the answer today, but plates were a part of that.
Well, I
final
know they
plan
were.
on
But
the
you can't run that water 24/7 through our property. You gotta hold water back to like it was before.
Well, I think what we constructed and what we designed was per the settlement agreement. So that's all I'm going to say on it tonight.
I can see this is going nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kubus. Anyone else have any concerns?
Hi, I'm Cody Koenig. I live on Schnagel Drive. About 6 weeks ago, there were multiple vehicles on our street that had tires slashed. There were, I believe, 22 different residences. Some of them had multiple vehicles with multiple tires slashed. When the detectives came to speak with us about it, we asked if they had anyone in mind as to who they thought had done this, and they said, or indicated that they thought it was someone from the Sober Living House. So, anyway, we're not happy as a neighborhood to have them there, especially to have them just sort of sneak in and have no notice of it whatsoever. It is a very family-friendly neighborhood. There are multiple families in that neighborhood, lots and lots of kids. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your concern. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Paul Bartholomew again. Just wonder if we could ask that the residents that are here tonight, if we could all just stand so you could see, we are concerned. And there is a number of us. And not everybody wanted to speak. They're not comfortable speaking publicly, and I understand that. I'm not either. But if you wouldn't mind.
I think they're all standing, Mr. Bartholomew.
Great.
I thought they were just here to see us.
Awesome. We are. We are here to see you.
It's not to make light of the situation, but we understand and
Yep.
we will be working on it.
We'll be working on this as quickly as possible.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And
Thank you, everyone.
just to clarify, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, and to the citizens, Mr. Smith had asked that as we continue this to respond, and it's easier for us if we can respond to him, if he carries that out, if that's okay. But if anybody thinks we're not paying attention to you, you can reach out to us individually, but I think you guys are very well organized and look like you'll be fine. But we will respond to Mr. Smith as we go along.
My name is Gary Kohler, and I live on Franklin Street in Chenango, and I just really want you to think about your families and your grandchildren and your children playing in the neighborhood next to something like this. I mean, how would you really like to see that next to your home? And I know you're getting the point, and I know you're going to take a hard look, but I just ask that you really look hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kohler.
Mr.
Anyone
Pres-
else? Oh, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Mr. Hadley, what is the precedent for businesses operating in residential areas without a special use permit?
Well, this use is actually an allowed use with a special use permit approval. Now, it obviously has to go through the process. The enforcement would be something that before it was even open, I was visiting with some of these folks because they had heard that was the intent. Well, obviously, I can't respond to a new owner of a home on hearsay and intent. And once it did operate, then I did send a letter out in July, I believe it was the third week in July, to the new owner instructing that they needed to come in and visit. And about 3 weeks later, they did come into my office with their attorney, and we had a nice long visit. And I asked, their intent at that time, at that meeting, was pretty obvious that they didn't think that it was applicable. I asked her to put it in writing, and she didn't. And so after that time, I'd sent another letter out giving them the deadlines and the process to go through. And we haven't had any response. I haven't had any response from that particular letter. That's when then unfortunately Haley walked into this as she started in a new role again here, and it's now in legal's hands to follow up. And I guess I'd turn it over to Haley. We can follow enforcement and go to court basically to shut it down. But I'll let Haley address that.
Yes, Mr. Hadley did a good job of explaining kind of that process. And as you mentioned, when you hear things might happen, you don't have, we have due process we have to follow. So until they actually break the code, we can't preemptively say no to, tell them not to. So, but now we're clearly in the situation where they're not following the code. And so my plan is to essentially put together kind of a legal research memorandum explaining the code sections that are involved, the procedure, and then enforcement options to circulate to planning and zoning and the commission so that everyone's aware of what the ordinances say.
So when can we anticipate that?
My plan is to get it done before our meeting on Thursday so that I can give it to staff as well. And when we go into this meeting, then we have all the information as opposed to kind of theoretical discussions and then doing it later.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Denise Ney. I live on Schnagel Drive. And I did call Mr. Hadley like back in June. And what he said was exactly what he had told me. That, I had asked him, if they opened it and they didn't have a permit, what would happen? And he said, well, they have to follow the enforcement and enforcement codes and that kind of stuff. My concern is the neighborhood is not happy with the situation, as well we shouldn't. I felt that we got blindsided by this. Our property values, we've talked to several realtors. When a potential buyer comes into our neighborhood, we have to disclose to that buyer that facility is in our area. Is that fair to us? They didn't disclose anything to us. Another thing is the realtors have also told us that our property values are going to go down. Most people, their homes are one of their biggest assets, and you improve on them so that when you go to sell them, you're able to either buy a bigger home, use it for retirement, or whatever. And I just don't feel it's fair that we should have to lose all that because someone wanted to buy a house without letting anybody know and come into a family-friendly fun neighborhood, and that's just my concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else have any concerns not on our agenda? Not, I will close the public issues of city concern not on the agenda. Thank you all for coming, expressing your concerns. Commissioners, do you have anything that you wish to say before we move into executive session?
Mr. President, I would just like to extend a thank you to everyone. I know that it takes time out of your day to come out here and come to these meetings, especially to sit through them. So we appreciate you coming to voice your concerns. I've communicated with a couple of you. We're unable to speak collectively when we're not in these meetings, so it's really important for us to have the opportunity to hear you all out as a body of one, because it really helps us in our decision-making moving forward. So thank you again. It's very important to the process.
Anyone else, commissioners? Any comments? If not, I would look for a motion to move into an executive session under the North Dakota Century Code 44-04-19.1 and 44-04-19.2.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to move to executive and a second. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We'll move into executive. Proceed on negotiations, this real estate contract negotiation. Leave it at that. Any commissioners, anything else?
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
You're adjourned.